Hi everybody, thanks so much for participating in Ask Amy G. I was really excited to bring it back, so I've got all your answers ready here. And before we get going, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications, and let's get to the video with all your answers. All right, our first question comes from Giant Niner 52. I'm assuming you're a Giants and Niners fan. Ooh, I put that together. All right, they want to know, is Terry Bradshaw your father? I love this question. My dad, no. Terry Bradshaw is not my dad, although he looks like a super fun dad. But my dad really is the best dad. I know I'm biased, but my father does look a lot like Terry Bradshaw and has been mistaken for Terry Bradshaw multiple times in his life. So I call him Terry Bradshaw every once in a while just because it's our little inside joke. But no, Terry's not my dad. Bob is, and I'm very, very lucky that Bob is my dad. Okay, we have a question coming in from I'm Playing with an E, Jane. And she wants to know, how did you land with the Giants? And actually, it's a great question, and it was super random and organic. I was actually a producer for years. I produced features for the Giants pregame, A's pregame shows that we would put on when Ronell was hosting, and I ended up reporting for the A's pregame show for a couple of seasons, and Larry Bear of the Giants saw my work and went to my boss at then Comcast and said, can we get Amy over to the Giants? And it happened in 2008, and you know what's happened since. So right place, right time for sure, but also a lot of hard work put into being in the right place at the right time and trying something different, not always being on camera. Next question comes from Jack D2E. What was your favorite World Series? That's so hard to answer because they were all super special in their own way. But I'm gonna go with 14 because I actually was involved from start to finish in covering the 2014 World Series. In 10 and 12, I only covered the games that they played at home and I didn't travel, but in 14 I traveled. And so that whole playoff run, while really long and exhausting, was surreal and so much fun. You know, we started in Pittsburgh, went on to DC, then St. Louis, and then the Royals, so in Kansas City. So several places I hadn't been. I hadn't been to Pittsburgh, I hadn't been to St. Louis, and I hadn't been to Kansas City, so I got to mark some cities off my box, but I also just thought the entire experience was so incredible, and then to be able to cover 7 games in a World Series is just, it's really, really cool. So 2014 is my favorite. Next question comes from Go Jen Carr. What are you doing to stay connected with the feel of baseball season during shelter in place? And I think that's kind of a question weighing on all of our minds. Anybody who covers sport, how are you trying to stay connected to your sport when you're not able to be around it, for the players to be able to play it? But I'm lucky that I have really good relationships within the Giants organization with former players and current players, obviously our broadcasters. So I really feel like I haven't stopped working since everything happened, I've had to adjust what I do. But I just talked to Joe Panic today, and you know, I talk to Kruk and Kipe every Monday. I'm going to talk to Bruce Bochy tonight, so for my Zoom interviews or Wine Wednesday. So it's actually, basically the answer to your question is to evolve with what the times are giving us, and then keep those relationships as strong as you can. And I really feel fortunate that I've got a lot of time in with the Giants, and so those relationships are there to help at a very odd time right now. Okay, next question comes from Clyde Hi, GAKI 111. It's crazy handle. I hope I said it right. Did you play sports at UC Davis? And yes, I did. My freshman year, I played volleyball, and then I hung them up because I had other things that I wanted to do. But I did play volleyball my first year at UC Davis. All right, question coming from Buckhorn Tavern. That sounds like a good place to go right now. What part of the ballpark is off limits for you and the cameraman or woman during games? And you know, I had to think about this. You know, there's areas in the clubhouse that press isn't allowed to go into, kind of in the back parts in the kitchen where they eat, you know, coach's room, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's pretty much all access for me and my camera person for that game, so that we can show you guys parts of the park that you don't normally get to see. So I guess just areas in the clubhouse, but other than that, pretty much have full range. All right, we've got a question from Rios Christian 15. What's one thing that we didn't get to see on the broadcast that you find funny? So there's zero, there's no way I can really answer this with one thing. There's so many things that happen every day at the ballpark that make me laugh that you guys don't get to see. The broadcast is pretty straightforward because we've got cameras everywhere, so you're seeing a lot of what we're seeing. But what I'll share on that topic is I often have dinner with Kruk and Kite prior to the game, and I often find myself in some type of bellyache laugh because of something they said, a story they told, something they did to me, a joke they played. And one time in particular, if you watch consistently, then you know I'm not a big fan of eating fish, and Mike and Dwayne are not a fan of that. Like they think they want me to like fish, and I don't really like fish. So when I was eating with them one night, the dessert in the press dining it was these really yummy chocolate brownies, and I love chocolate, and they don't come out very often. It's pretty rare that we get this dessert. It's usually cookies or something more like that, but these were like, oh, I'm getting one of those. And so I actually grabbed dessert prior to dinner because I wanted to make sure that I had this brownie. And I was chatting with Dwayne over here, doing this over here, and while I'm doing this, Mike lays this disgusting piece of like tilapia or something over that coveted brownie. And I'm talking, and all of a sudden Dwayne's just laughing, and I'm, what are you laughing at? And I should have known it was something that involved me. And I look over at my brownie, and Mike had put a piece of fish on my brownie. Here's the thing. Dwayne's like, it's fine, took the piece of fish off, took the brownie back to the table and got me a new one. So somebody got a brownie that tasted a little fishy. But those are the kinds of things that they do. All right, we have a question from Michael Barabalt. What advice would you give to a young aspiring sports journalist? And that's, you know, great question to ask anybody who's in the industry. And there's so many things that I would want to say to you, so many things I've learned that I could pass on to protect you for sure. But the one thing, if there's one thing I'm going to pass on, it's to really know your sport. You know, if you never want to try and fake your knowledge, because people are smart, and they can, you know, transparency is not your friend in sports journalism if you don't know what you're talking about. So be, you know, adamant about your knowledge. Don't go outside of your comfort zone with what you want to report. If you're not fully sure how something went down, stay away from it until you know exactly how you want to convey the information. And do your research, do your homework. It's a lot of prep work. Sports journalism, journalism in general, it's really about preparing for what may come your way off of your questions. And you need to be able to be flexible and to be able to find an avenue to go with the player and interview wherever it is you want to go. But just know your sport, know it inside and out. Got a question from Sue France. Thanks for writing in. What is your favorite moment from the Giants? Again, really hard question to answer. There's so many. I mean, this is my 13th season. So, but I'll go with probably the first very memorable moment, and that was Jonathan Sanchez's no-hitter back in 2009. That was my first milestone moment as a reporter, and he's a wonderful person. I'm really glad it happened to him, and I love the whole storyline of that evening and how it turned out and how it made his career. So yeah, Jonathan Sanchez's no-hitter 2009. All right, question from M. Horner 3. Does Timmy keep in touch with the organization? Great question. Not a lot is known about Timmy at this point, and I think he probably wants it that way. If he were to ever see this, you know, I hope he sees it, but he's missed for sure. But he did show up to Boch's retirement, you know, his final game last season, and that was a big surprise because we did not know who was in touch with Timmy, but clearly he's in touch with somebody because they got him to come out to Bocce's last game. I do know that some of his former teammates are definitely still in touch with him. So there's people that keep tabs on him, and we get word that you know, he's doing okay, and hopefully right now he's healthy and safe while we're all sheltering in place. And he was one of my favorites. So I wish only good things for Tim Lincecum, and it would be great if he comes back into the fold, and when he's ready, he will. Our last question for Ask Amy G. Thank you everybody so much for writing in. This has been super fun, and we'll do it again soon. Pennant 24 Bay, their question is, it's a long one. Remember your first game working for the Giants in 08 at Dodger Stadium? After that thrashing they gave us, after the game, did you think, poo? We'll use poo. This might be a long year. It's such an interesting question because it takes me back so long ago, yet it's very vivid in my mind. Yes, I remember my very first game covering the Giants, but I don't remember a thrashing, and I don't remember thinking this is going to be a really long year because I didn't think the team was good. I remember thinking this is going to be a really long year because I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first season of this job, which had no job description. And I left that series driving back home on I-5 with my 5-week-old daughter and my 3-year-old son and my husband, wondering what exactly I had gotten myself into. So that's what I remember from that game and from that series, that I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this. I was getting a lot of criticism and backlash for my performance, which was probably horrific. I remember showing up to that first game and I had spit up on my shoulder from my daughter because I had just fed her and then went to the park. And those are the things that were on my mind from that season. It was really just trying to survive, having such a young family and a brand new job and a fan base that didn't know me, and they weren't quite sure they wanted to accept me. And what I learned from all of it is that time prevails. So just stick with it, and it'll get better, and it did. All right, thanks so much everybody for writing in to Ask Amy G. Hope everybody's doing well, safe, and healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.